Hello friends, in this session we learn about the database design, some steps and the tips for the database designs. For the database design, we need to understand about the SQL and its benefits. Also we need to about the DDL and DML because all the database design is related to the DDL. So what is the agenda of this session is, first we need to understand SQL and its benefits. After that we understand about the DDL versus the DML, and after that we will learn about the database design steps and tips. Okay, so first we start with SQL. So what is the SQL? SQL stands for the structure query languages. According to the ANSI, it is the standard language for the relational database management system. So SQL statements are used to perform a task such as inserting, updating, deleting or retrieving the data from a database. So some common relational database management system that use the SQL are Oracle, Sybase, Microsoft SQL Server, MS Access and so on. So what is the benefits of the SQL? So here we see that some benefits of SQL. So first is the faster query performing. Faster query processing. So faster query processing means a large amount of data is retrieved quickly and efficiently. Operations like inserting, deleting and manipulating data are also in some minutes. Another thing is the no coding skills. No coding skills means a large number of lines of code is not required to retrieve the data. Keywords such as the select, insert, update, etc. are used, and also the syntactical rules of the SQL is not complex, which means the SQL is user-friendly language. The third one is standardized language. Due to the documentation and the long establishment over the years, it provides a uniform platform worldwide to all its users. So now the fourth one is interactive language. Because easy to learn and understand, answer to the complex queries can be received in the seconds. So it's an interactive language for anyone. Okay. So now we understand what about the DDL and what about the DML. So DDL is data definition language and it's used to define the structure like a schema, database, tables, constant and etc. That means create and alter statements are used in the DDL. And where DML is a data manipulation language and is used to manipulate the data. That means insert, update and delete the records are all the DML functionality. So we are defining the database designing. So all database designing is related to DDL. That means we are altering or creating the tables, constraint and everything. What about the DDL? So it's all about the DDL in the database design. So now start with the database design steps. So there are some steps for the designing the database and there are some tips which we can understand by easily, and keep in mind that things before the database designing. So we start with the database designing. So some steps are mentioned here. So now let's start to understand the steps and tips for the database design. So first step is determine the purpose of the database. That means first write down the purpose of your database on the paper, like what you want and who is using your database. Make some statements that help you to focus on your goals when you make a decision. The second step is find and organize the required information. Find and make the documentation all the information according to your system. Suppose you want to create a database for the e-commerce system. So here you need to think about the entities will be like products, customers, orders and so on. After that, the third step is dividing the information into the table. After gathering the main entities, we need to find the related items. For product entities, we need to collect the data such as the product ID, name, price, and some other information related to the product. Then we need to convert this data into the table format. So this is the step number 3. So after the collecting the data, we are dividing into the some table formats. The next step is that turning the information into the columns. After getting the information about the sub entities, now we need to convert them into the columns with the proper data types. Here are some points that we need to keep in mind. Like first one is, don't include the calculate data. That means if we have an order table and we store the final amount in it, this is a not valid for some future scenarios, because in future we need to show the subtotal or discount on any other things. This table will not be used for properly in the futures. So store the all information and calculate when is needed. The second one is, store information in smallest logical path. That means dividing your information into the columns. For example, if you want to store the address and need to create the columns such as address 1, address 2, city, state, etc. to return the particular data in the future. We not required to add the whole address in single column. We need to divide that columns into separate columns like address 1, address 2, city, state, or etc. The third one is, use proper data types. Use the proper data type related to your fields because it is affecting your database size and future references. Suppose right now we have the decide to the column for some type of bits for the true or false value. But if we anticipated that we will have some other types in that future, then we need to use the tiny rather than use the bit. That means we can add some other information rather than the true and false value. One another example is, if we need the column as a long and integer, there will be a no data more than the 255. Suppose we have a column for integer or long, but we know that there is a no data more than 255. So here we need to use the tiny. It will be impact on your database size. When you use the integer, your database size will be increased. When you use the long, the database size will be also increasing. So if you are using the tiny, your database size will be decreased. So please choose a proper data type when you are creating the database structure. The next step is to define the proper primary keys in all tables. This primary key will help you to improve the performance when we joins the data of two or more the tables, and add the primary key like a product ID, order ID, which are the unique in every table every time. The sixth step is to set up the relationship of your tables. Now times need to the create a relationship between the tables such as one-to-one relationship, one-to-many relationship, or many-to-many relationship. For example, in the order item table, we need add the order ID and the product ID columns for referring the order and the product table. So please create these references and make foreign keys according to them. The next and major step is that normalization. Till now, we gather the data and assign it to some columns and tables. But now, time to normalize that data. Normalization means we need to check the data of all the tables and reduce the redundant column or create a separate table. Take one example in order item table. If we add the order ID, product name in the order item table, so product name is also in the products table. So we can get the product name from the products join. So here we not required to add the product name. So we need to remove the product name column from the order item table. So another example is that we add the address related columns in the customer table and the order table. So here we can create a new table for the address and just need to add the address ID into the customer and the order table rather than add the full address information. After completing all the steps, now you can understand how to create a database in the SQL. I hope now you get the more knowledge on the database design. So if you like this video, please like it and share it. Also subscribe the channel to get this type of more videos quickly. Thank you.